Imagine standing on the brink of history as the world seems to unravel before your eyes. In Tehran, 330,000 people have just evacuated, their lives disrupted by the echoes of missiles soaring through the skies of Jerusalem. It's not just a conflict, it's a moment that feels charged with biblical significance, the kind that leaves you questioning not just the present, but the future. Have you ever wondered how ancient prophecies weave into our realities today? Well, here's the truth. The events unfolding could be signaling a divine message about our times. If you're feeling anxious or uncertain amidst this turmoil, take heart. Jesus is with you, and through these challenges, we can find hope and strength. Subscribe now, and in the comments, share where you're from or your thoughts on how Jesus has worked miracles in your life. Remember, Jesus will bless you, and together, we'll navigate this journey of faith. Jerusalem isn't just another dot on the global map. It embodies a deep well of spiritual, cultural, and historical essence that has resonated through the corridors of history. This city has been both a sanctuary of peace and a battlefield of empires because of its geographical and spiritual centrality. References from biblical texts like Zechariah 12 and Ezekiel 5 verse 5 elevate Jerusalem as the epicenter of spiritual awakening and turmoil, shaping its image as a critical focal point of human history. From ancient times, it has occupied the imagination and souls of countless civilizations. In ancient texts, the gravity of Jerusalem is accentuated through passages that not only remark on its founding, but also portray its divine prophetic role. Zechariah 12, for instance, prophesies Jerusalem becoming a burdensome stone for all nations, encapsulating its formidable and often contentious allure. To understand why Jerusalem holds such significance, one must delve into both its tangible and metaphysical attributes that have mesmerized emperors, kings, and conquerors alike, all of whom have sought to lay claim to this hallowed ground at great risk of ruin. The geostrategic positioning of Jerusalem has naturally made it a coveted prize. Straddling crossroads of diverse cultures, it connects continents and serves as a nexus of commerce and conquest. Yet, the city's value transcends mere geography. Embedded in the stones and pathways of Jerusalem lies a spiritual lineage that speaks to the collective subconscious of humanity. Its streets have felt the footsteps of prophets, and its walls have echoed with the voices of visionary leaders interpreting divine decrees. Ezekiel 5 verse 5 explicitly posits Jerusalem as the center of the world, a spiritual and physical navel of creation. Historically, this claim has been figuratively and literally contested, as empires from Babylon to Rome to the Crusaders have seen their aspirations tied to this sacred land. The idea that control over Jerusalem might confer divine favor or cosmic balance has often had disastrous implications. Empires have crumbled attempting to dominate this sacred bastion, suggesting a cosmic justice or fulfillment of ancient scripture's warning of such endeavors. Moreover, the spiritual significance of Jerusalem resonates vividly within the monotheistic frameworks of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, further complicating its status. Each tradition holds Jerusalem as an axial point in their spiritual narratives, leading to an enduring, painful struggle for sovereignty and recognition. For Jews, it is the site of the ancient temples and a symbol of eternal covenant. For Christians, it is where Christ was crucified and resurrected, marking the cornerstone of their faith. Within Islam, it houses the Al-Aqsa Mosque, revered as the third holiest site. Each religious claim on Jerusalem echoes with spiritual conviction, yet it's these layered identities that fuse to make it a unique spiritual epicenter. This fusion does not merely contribute to theoretical discourse, it fuels reality. It is a tapestry that exemplifies divine prophecy intertwining with human history in real time, manifesting in the tension and the incalculable reverence all three faiths bestow upon this holy city. Down the ages, every force that has attempted dominance over Jerusalem has often ended enveloped in a quagmire of conflict, expense, and eventual collapse. underscored by prophetic texts. Such historical patterns suggest a cautionary tale. The passages reveal a divine orchestration, perhaps guiding history towards a culmination foreseen by ancient seers and echoed by geopolitical analysts today. The interplay of divine reckoning and earthly ambition paints a picture of Jerusalem that is both poignant and perilous. In contemplating Jerusalem's historical path, the heavy symbolism imbued within its reality becomes clear. This city, in constant flux yet anchored by prophecy, serves as a physical representation of divine faith intertwined with human endeavors. It carries the weight of ancient promises and modern expectations, fulfilling roles spoken in scriptures with an uncanny resemblance to present-day unfoldings. For anyone studying the prophecies, this notion is compelling. These historical reverberations, wars, empires declining, and cultures clashing, is an echo of Jerusalem's standing as the fulcrum of divine plans, the ultimate spiritual reality challenging the temporal power. As the modern world grapples with nations vying over Jerusalem, the ground beneath tells a story older than time, a story that continues to influence present-day geopolitics with a push towards prophetic fulfillment. The historical significance of Jerusalem thus acts as an unerring compass pointing towards spiritual insights transcending the momentary, an ageless saga that threads epochs with an unresolved question of divine will and human capacity for coexistence. The chapter anticipates, then, a segue into the prophetic overview of conflicts past and present, mapping the eternal struggle that transcends political borders and echoes through the spiritual terrains of global beings. In the cosmic tapestry of history and faith, certain patterns of prophecy and reality have woven themselves so intricately that discerning believers cannot ignore their revelations. Ezekiel and Jeremiah, two profound voices from the ancient scriptures, echo throughout the ages, whispering of conflicts that transcend mere mortal expectations. Their prophetic visions hold more than the wisdom of their time. They encapsulate a foresight that resonates deeply within the fabric of today's tumultuous world events. The scriptural passages of Ezekiel 38 and 39 vividly portray scenes that, to a contemporary eye, align eerily with the geopolitical tensions currently simmering in the Middle East. Ezekiel speaks of a great confederation of nations rising against Israel, a narrative that seems to find its modern counterpart in the alliances forming in our fractured world. Iran, known in ancient times as Persia, holds a significant place within Ezekiel's vision. As history turns its gaze towards this ancient land, we witness a nation steeped in a troubling dance of power, aligning itself on the global chessboard that characterizes Ezekiel's prophesied conflict. The prophet Jeremiah, in chapter 49, echoes similar themes. He weaves together a tapestry of forewarnings concerning Elam, a region synonymous with parts of modern-day Iran. This is more than a tale of past and present political machinations. It is a spiritual saga unfolding before our very eyes. Jeremiah's words, as ancient as the sands of time, seem to ripple through the ages to find truth in today's headlines, challenging us to grasp the significance of nations whose ancient empires once contended with Israel and now find new life in today's arena of power and influence. In the symbolic language of prophecy, these texts carry profound implications. The vivid imagery Ezekiel employs, armies of horsemen, shields, and swords, speaks to a timeless military prowess, transcending the specificities of ancient warfare to challenge the reader to see beneath the surface. The profound symbolism invites us to consider not only the physical manifestations of power and conflict, but also the spiritual undertones that whisper through these descriptions. Strategic alliances become more than mere political expediency. They transform into the fulfillment of divine foresight, woven into the grand narrative prepared from the foundation of the world. These passages do not simply speak of nations as geopolitical entities. They address spiritual realities, realities that reflect an ongoing struggle not only for land and dominion, but for the very soul of humanity. Yet, even in this tumultuous crucible of conflict, there lies a deeper message, a message of hope and divine orchestration. For within these prophetically charged chapters, we find an assurance of divine oversight. Ezekiel, among his vivid depictions of warfare, assures us of God's sovereign hand guiding history's trajectory. The nation's clamoring ambitions and alliances fall under the purview of a God who weaves through the chaos an unshakable divine order. As these ancient prophecies unfold before us like a celestial script, we are invited into a deeper understanding of our place within these grand designs. It beckons the seeker to look beyond the headlines, beyond the realm of flesh and blood, into a spiritual conflict echoing the cosmic battle between light and darkness. This chapter, nestled between the profound implications drawn from Jerusalem's significance and Israel's miraculous victories, serves as a bridge. It connects the historically anchored spiritual epiphany of one city's significance to the ongoing narrative of divine intervention and fulfillment. As the pieces of this prophetic puzzle come together, believers are called to pursue greater awareness, a recognition, perhaps, that prophetic fulfillment is not an ended chapter, but a living dialogue between God and humanity manifesting through time. The tapestry of prophecy invites its audience to not only witness, but to partake in the unfolding design, participating through prayer, reflection, and steadfast faith. In perceiving these events through the lens of prophecy, it becomes clear that this is not just history repeating itself, but divine history rendering itself comprehensible to those who are ready to listen and understand. Israel's history is deeply rooted in stories of survival against overwhelming odds, tales that have contributed to a national identity imbued with resilience and faith. The victories of 1948, 1967, and 1973 are often recalled not just for their military brilliance, but for their alignment with biblical assurances which seem to suggest divine endorsement and protection over the nation. The year 1948 marks a pivotal moment for Israel. After the United Nations voted to establish a Jewish state, neighboring countries swiftly launched an invasion. Outnumbered and lacking resources, Israel's chance of survival seemed slim. Yet, through strategic operations, resourceful improvisation, and sheer determination, Israel emerged victorious. This inaugural triumph is often seen in light of scriptural assurances, echoed in Jeremiah 31 verses 35 to 36, where God vows to preserve Israel as long as natural laws remain. Fast forward to 1967, when during the Six-Day War, Israel faced existential threats from Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. The odds were stacked high against them, with their enemies poised to obliterate the nascent state. Yet, Israel not only defended its borders, but achieved decisive victories, expanding its territory. This swift and unexpected triumph bears the hallmark of divine intervention for many believers. Deuteronomy 30 verse 4 reassures that even when Israel is scattered, God will gather his people from the ends of the earth, a promise that resonates with the results achieved during this war. In 1973, the Yom Kippur War unfolded, catching Israel off guard during one of its most sacred holidays. Once more, the country faced significant military forces from Egypt and Syria in coordinated attacks. Initially overwhelmed, Israeli forces managed to regroup and redirect, eventually reclaiming lost ground. The victory, though costly, is another chapter in the narrative of divine safeguarding that marks Israel's modern historical experiences, reinforcing a belief that ancient covenants are as alive as ever. These victories are seen by many as manifestations of God's intervention, underscoring the belief in a divine hand steadying Israel through turbulent waters. Israel, much like the biblical David facing the Goliath of overwhelming adversaries, has repeatedly found strength beyond mere human capabilities. In contemporary discussions, these historical accounts serve as a beacon of hope and evidence of the living nature of God's promises. Furthermore, These events are not isolated incidents, but part of a larger tapestry driven by divine orchestration as narrated in biblical history. Believers find solace in the prophetic linkage, drawing connections with the words of ancient prophets who foresaw conflicts and deliverance. The concept of divine warfare, wherein God himself engages in the defense of his chosen people, remains a powerful narrative. These stories forge a deep-seated confidence among Israelis and supporters worldwide that no matter the external tumult, there remains a divine promise that guarantees their endurance and success. While rational explanations can be offered for these victories, in terms of military strategy, intelligence, and technology, the belief prevalent among many is that the determining factor is divine. This perspective is crucial to understanding the psyche of modern Israel, a nation perpetually vigilant yet anchored in faith. As global tensions rise, particularly with prophetic allusions around nations like Iran, the timeless iterations of Israel's endurance provide both encouragement and a model of faith-based resilience. This chapter of victories is more than historical recount. It is a testimony of divine partnership that many see as pivotal to interpreting current and future global events foretold in prophecy. In considering these narratives, one must appreciate the depth of assurance felt among those who hold these stories close, that an invisible eternal hand has, and will continue to, guide Israel amidst adversities. These stories of victory are not merely to recount history, but to anticipate future triumphs, assured by the same divine promises that have preserved a nation against all odds. In light of Israel's historical and divine successes, attention shifts to the prophetic climax that unfolds in biblical narratives, foretelling events like the battles of Gog and Magog, dramatic divine interventions, and the promise of future peace. The prophecies in Ezekiel 38 speak of a tumultuous period when a confederation led by Gog will rise against Israel, embodying the ultimate test of faith and perseverance. It seems like an impossible scenario, a small nation standing against a massive coalition of adversaries. But this is precisely where prophecy and divine promise converge. Ezekiel paints a vivid picture of an impending storm, a colossal union of nations moving toward Israel with malevolent intent. Yet, this scenario is not just a tale of strife, but a stage set for divine manifestation. This battle symbolizes more than physical warfare. It represents the broader spiritual struggle between forces of good and evil. In this narrative, Israel stands not only as a nation, but as a beacon of divine promise amidst worldly chaos. In the culmination of this prophesied battle, attention turns to the anticipated divine intervention. Biblical texts assure that just when hope seems dim, God steps in, turning the tides remarkably. Ezekiel 38 verses 18 to 23 depicts a scene where God himself intervenes with great cataclysmic events, a testimony to his unwavering covenant with Israel. Amidst earthquakes, torrential rains, and divine signs, the formidable enemies scatter, overwhelmed by a power beyond human comprehension. This is God's powerful affirmation of his promises, as seen through the lens of prophecy. Scriptures like Zechariah 14 provide further depth to this cosmic confrontation, describing not only the physical deliverance of Israel, but also the spiritual victory that follows. Zechariah speaks of the arrival of the Lord, marking a day when the Mount of Olives will split, ushering in an era of salvation and renewal. This event trails the beginning of a sustained period of peace and is a foreshadowing of the second coming of Jesus, an event steeped in hope and spiritual fulfillment. Revelation 19 then broadens the perspective to a cosmic scale where the heavens open and Jesus returns triumphantly to establish his kingdom on earth. This event signals the end of earthly conflicts and the dawn of a new era characterized by righteousness and justice. The imagery is rich with symbolism. Jesus as a rider on a white horse, leading celestial armies, a depiction of ultimate victory and justice. This anticipated return sparks the beginning of an age where Isaiah's prophecies find their fulfillment. Isaiah speaks of a transformed world, where swords are beaten into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks, where instruments of war become tools for cultivation and peace. This transformation is not merely metaphorical. It signifies a fundamental shift in the human condition, where peace and divine prosperity replace conflict and turmoil. The prophecies resonate with the vision of a world where harmony reigns, both in nature and among nations. The lion lying down with the lamb, as spoken in Isaiah, symbolizes this era of universal peace and reconciled creation, marking the most dramatic turn in human history and God's redemptive plan. In light of these profound prophecies, the narrative not only highlights the certainty of divine fulfillment, but also calls individuals to embrace this future with faith. It challenges each person to reflect on the transient nature of earthly struggles and urges reliance on promises that transcend time and circumstance. While the narrative acknowledges the real challenges faced by nations and individuals alike, it ultimately grounds hope in the assurance of a new beginning, a divine reset, where eternal peace takes root. In today's context, where uncertainty looms large, these prophecies offer more than foreknowledge of future events. They offer a personal invitation, an invitation to deepen one's connection with the divine, to cultivate peace within, and to live with a perspective anchored in faith. Engaging with these prophecies instills a sense of purpose and invites contemplative action, prayer, reflection, and the strengthening of spiritual bonds in preparation for the new era foretold. In a world often overshadowed by fears and conflicts, the promise of fulfillment and peace stands as a beacon reminding believers of their faith's power and the true hope it holds for humanity's future. These prophecies encourage looking beyond immediate trials to the lasting peace and restoration that God promises, enriching personal faith with a fuller understanding of divine plans that offer assurance even amidst chaos.